from, and thank you, About Face, curious name, and Avril, terrific. Everybody else, just track down one of those emoticons. That would be sensational. Thanks, Elizabeth. We've got lots of people in the room today, and we want to make sure that everybody's awake in the back of the classroom for this awesome session, Facebook for Schools, About Face. Terrific. The next tool, one that if you've been to one of my webinars before, this is our 70th, you'll know this tool, and that's the Hands Up tool. So could people look for the Hands Up tool, not the Step Away tool, and just pop up your virtual hand, and you'll notice that the participant box will organise everything into the order that your hand is up, and Colleen, you get the virtual gold star, #1 position. Kay was #3, that's pretty good. Keep popping up those hands. That will also give us a count of the people in the room. Thanks for that. Keep jamming those hands up. David, have we got your virtual hand up? Terrific. We've done a bit of a check around the weather. Excellent, David. #20, good. Nice work. Okay, let's pop down those hands, which I'll do in just a moment. Okay, and our other tool, just so you're comfortable with this and can use it in the session, is just the poll tool. It sometimes will show ABCD, and sometimes it will have a tick or a cross, just so I know that you're alive and well on this Tuesday morning. I think it's a Wednesday morning, Central Standard Time in South Australia. Could you please just choose from the poll the red cross, just to show me that that it works, and also to trick the people that had already clicked on the green tick. So the cross, great. And you can see those numbers racing along there, which is terrific. Fantastic. And our very last one is our text chat. While I'm talking at the moment, could everybody just provide a quick introduction, who you are, where you're from, maybe your position, and pop that into the text chat box now while I'm talking. So in the text chat box, a quick introduction. If you've got a Twitter handle or a blog that you wish to share, a school website, you can drop that in the box too. It will become a hyperlink. And fantastic. Let's fill that text chat box up with lots of chat. You might need to move your slider up and down, and certainly you can ask questions of one another. Today we're going to use the text chat box just like a Twitter back channel. It's a place to think out loud. It's a place to take notes. It's a place to pose questions for David, for Kay, for myself, for Matinga, and for any of our guests about how they use Facebook for Schools. Terrific. Look at those. Excellent. Keep doing that. Jab those commentaries and questions and contributions into that box. That will be fantastic. Just so you know, this event will be recorded like all of the PowerNet webinars. This is about number 70. And those recordings are made available and free to any member of the PowerNet community, www.powernet.edu.au. We'll pop that in the text chat box. That's a free online community for anybody interested in leading learning in schools. And at PowerNet, you'll find recordings for all of the webinars that have been held. Plus, also, we like to transcribe the text chat. So anything you say can and may be used against you in a court of law, and your contributions to the profession obviously are highly valued with that as well. Just joking. Thanks. I was wondering, TIGS, where they were coming from, and thank you for popping up the PowerNet address, and good comment, Brad. It is great to see such a spread of sectors and professionals. Terrific. Excellent. Love it. Okay, let's get ourselves started. We've covered our virtual tools. I'll just shift my bits of paper around. Terrific. Okay, so we're recording this event, as I mentioned. Fantastic. So welcome, everybody. The topic today is very much topical. It's about Facebook, and it's about considering the use of Facebook not just for students, but Facebook for schools in an administrative function. So it's the school use of Facebook, not the student use of Facebook that we're talking about, although there is an interdependency and an interconnection between those two. Australian schools are embracing social media in their droves. Blogsters, Pinterest, WordPress, LinkedIn, Twitter, and particularly Facebook. And as we know, Facebook provides no-cost tools to allow schools to reach out to connect to, and also potentially to collaborate with their community and their stakeholders. it provides an opportunity for schools to shape their image both for external audiences but also for internal audiences, which is terrific. What we're interested today is to have a conversation around what are some of the drivers and some of the conditions required for this particular type of Facebook use to flourish within schools. We're interested to hear what the obstacles are, what the solutions and what the surprise benefits may be. Some of those things possibly that real educators have experienced or real experts. We're going to do a quick check to make sure that we can hear from a couple of our speakers in the moment. So it's just going to be a quick hello, then I'll be talking some more, and then we'll cast to our two speakers. Our first one that I'd like to say a big shout out and good morning to is David Hartstein. Now, David's article on Mashable, titled How Schools Can Use Facebook to Build Online Communities, grabbed my attention, and it's had about 2.6 thousand views and downloads, and it might be more. Now, David's an interesting guy. He's a partner at wiredImpact.com. He authors articles for Mashable, 3.6, I'm sorry, and it's particularly around this article we're going to be having a conversation with David in a few minutes' time. But David, can we just get a shout out from you to our Australian audience, please?
Of course. Good morning, everyone.
Great. And David, whereabouts, just for our people here, could you just give us a sense of your place and space, where you are, what time, what the weather's like, what you're eating?
Sure. So I'm in Missouri, which is right in the middle of the States, and it's a little after 7:30 at night here. And last check, it was comfortable right around 80 degrees Fahrenheit here.
Right, okay, which means nothing to me, 80 degrees Fahrenheit, but somebody in the text chat box is going to magically convert that into Celsius. That's the wonder of crowdsourcing solutions. Thanks for that, David. Now, Our other guest that we have online at the moment is the absolutely fabulous Kay Clifford. Kay Clifford works at the moment at Blair Athol North Birth to Seven School, but in a secret other life, Kay Clifford led an e-teacher project for the Department of Education in South Australia, which was ambitious, exciting, and had lots of unintended outcomes. Kay's now at Banby 7 School, and they're doing some seriously cool things with Facebook. Kay, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks, Mark, and everyone else online. We had a few little technical hitches to get here, but yeah, we're now on board, I think, and my good old mobile phone's doing a great job.
Great, thank you for that, Kay, and we'll be looping back to both you and David for some input in a few minutes' time. Now, our other guests who will have input from in one way or the other, because as Kay suggested, there have been some challenges, but we like to think of them as opportunities for solutions. You can see a message from Matinga. Now, Matinga was the Michigan Teacher of the Year over in the States, and she's an inspiring educator who dances on this kind of edge of hybrid learning design and global education. She's a consultant in learning technology and has lots of input about Facebook for schools. Matinga sent a message to us. She's waited 40 minutes. She's been trying to get into this event, and she doesn't want to distract us. So she's going to not be able to join us live, but she is going to provide her contributions through the PowerNet community. And that's one of the great things about social learning platforms like Facebook, like PowerNet, is it allows people to engage in authentic ways 24/7. So where a real-time conversation may not work all the time, out-of-time conversations can continue. So we thank Matinga for her input. We're also going to have some input and conversation around the Facebook being used by Donella. Donella Glasbrook is a progressive Australian principal who's created a tech turnaround school in a regional setting in South Australia, and was one of the first people within that region, the largest region in South Australia, to embrace the use of Facebook in her school. So she's got some interesting stories about getting started and pitfalls, and we thank Donella for that. Mel Jones is an outstanding curriculum leader located in a regional setting, a primary school setting. She's a junior primary teacher and an innovator, and is using Facebook as a platform to develop both literacy skills in her learners, but also to connect with stakeholders within the community and beyond. So we thank her for that. Lyle Walker is principal of Parkhurst State School in Queensland, and an enthusiastic embracer of current and emerging technologies. We'll be hearing from here in a moment. Okay, so that's our lineup for today. Here's the process that we're going to follow. In a few moments' time, I'm going to cast over firstly to David, and David's going to be interrogated, if you like, about his article in relation to Facebook. And what we're interested in with to hear from David is some of the ways schools are using Facebook, some of the pitfalls, the challenges, the opportunities, some of his observations with his work with WiredImpact.com in this space of social media and where it connects with education. So when we hear from David for about 10 minutes or so, I'd encourage everybody in the text chat box to bombard him with questions. So are you talking about pages? Are you talking about groups? Who owns the data? How can we be sure? What are we doing about digital citizenship and so on? So this event today is very much about the participation of the audience. So we want your questions. After we've heard from David, we'll bounce straight on to Kay. And Kay's going to show us some examples of Banby 7's Facebook. She's going to talk to us about getting started and bringing a community along in terms of her use for Facebook. And again, we encourage people to ask questions. David and Kay aren't here suggesting that they have all of the answers, but they're here to shine a light on their practice in this area, which will be fantastic. So let's first of all move our attention to David, and people in the text chat box. This is your opportunity to interrogate the author of this article that has had 3.6 thousand hits and downloads, which is all around Facebook and schools. So David, would you be okay? I'll pop in and out and ask questions along the way, but for about 10 minutes, would you be okay to talk to us and give us a sense of that article, your reasons for writing it, and the reaction since then?
Sure, absolutely. Itself. Yeah. Before we dive in, I do just want to reiterate quickly what Mark said, and I appreciate the introduction. So I do work at a company called Wired Impact, and we make websites for nonprofit organizations. And my role specifically here is handling really content strategy and then also analytics and measurement. And of course, part of the content strategy would be social media. And then before I came on at Wired Impact, I was actually a primary school teacher, and so I've kind of experienced this intersection of social media and schools from a few different angles. And so, I feel like I can kind of bring both of those worlds together and hopefully be able to answer some questions with regards to Facebook and schools. To Mark's question about what prompted writing the article, just in my experience in primary school, it seemed like a lot of teachers wanted to use Facebook as kind of a tool, but there was kind of an impreciseness around how it was going to actually happen. And so something I've definitely been interested in is how social media, specifically Facebook, can really be a tool that, drives towards an educational focus and towards actually achieving student outcomes. So I also want to say, I'm happy to answer questions as we go along. I'll also put my Twitter handle here in the chat, and I'm happy to answer questions there, if they come up later today, if they come up in the future, definitely feel free to reach out there. You can also get me through our website, which again is WiredImpact.com. I can put that chat, or I'll put that in the chat as well. So before kind of diving in specifically to talking about, types of content that you should be sharing and how to measure the impact that Facebook is having, I'd like to just talk quickly about just a note about compliance with school policy and also just about safety in general. So with policy, a lot of schools at this point have adopted social media specific policies, and they also just a lot of times have policies that govern the way that information can be shared. And so it's really important whenever you are using Facebook within a school setting that you're making sure that you're consistent with the policies that have been set out by your school, maybe by your district. And it's important that you're just making sure that, for instance, some schools will have policies with regards to protecting the identities of children. Some will have some policies with regards to governing the relationships that teachers and children can have outside of the school building. Specifically, an example would be friending someone on Facebook. Some schools may say, oh, that's perfectly fine to be friends with students on Facebook, to have conversations via Facebook, whereas other schools would say, absolutely not. We're drawing a line. Maybe you can be connected through a Facebook page, but you're not allowed to be a personal connection. You're not allowed to actually friend students. It's just important that all teachers and staff members are on the same page with regards to policy. And then speaking specifically with regards to student safety, the whole point of this conversation is just to make sure that we're never putting kids at risk. We want to make sure that we're never putting them in harm's way. And so before launching a Facebook presence, it's really important that every school considers, first of all, the type of content that you're going to share, and then also just how much student information you're going to share. So sometimes that would be, maybe you're just going to share student first names, or you're just going to share student initials. Just kind of figuring out exactly what kind of information will be shared can be really helpful. And just planning these things ahead of time can take a lot of the guesswork out of it down the road. So that can really help keep students safe because everyone's on the same page. Everyone knows exactly what is expected. So let me see, I'm just going to glance through here real quick at the chat to make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, there's a variety of questions already coming in here. So we have a note that yeah, certainly in some parts of, in some worlds of education, it will be mandated that, students and faculty cannot be connected via friends, and that's absolutely true. I know in the States, it really kind of runs the gamut in terms of what policies are out there. And I think there was definitely, when Facebook first was becoming popular, there was a general apprehension about letting students and staff be connected on Facebook, and I've seen some schools be more lenient with that, and I've also seen some schools really take a very firm approach, and there's not necessarily, a one-size-fits-all best approach, but I would say that you definitely want to make sure that you are consistent not only with policy, but also with statutes in the area that you are operating within for sure.
Great. And David, it's Mark here. Sorry, just to drop in. What we'll do is I'll track the text chat along the way. I mean, certainly It's great that you are. And then after we've heard from yourself and Kay, what I'll do is I'll pull together some of the themed questions and direct them both to you and Kay. Just a quick commentary on what you've talked about already, though. It's very true with discussions we've had in and around Australian schools. On one hand, Facebook provides the best example of an environment for students to learn digital citizenship. It is the authentic context, the school's Facebook page, to actually become a teaching and learning resource for students around the ways that we conduct ourselves online and manage reputations online. But as people have noted in the text box area, sometimes that isn't an option. And then you see through, in other schools around Asia Pacific and Australia, and I'm sure in the States, things like Yammer, things like Schoolology, things like Edmodo, that again provide those kind of authentic digital citizenship spaces for students and their teachers to engage with. But I guess if we keep moving the conversation along, and I'm just letting you know that I'll be keeping track of the questions and themes, and then I'll come back to both you and Kay a little bit later on. Is that okay?
Perfect. Much appreciated.
Great.
Great. So now, we've talked a little bit about safety. We've talked a little bit about policy. We can dive into some of the fun stuff, which really is, how can we leverage Facebook? What kind of content can we share? And how are we really going to use this in a way that's helpful to our students and also just to our staff being able to do their job? And one place that I think Facebook is especially well suited for is sharing school culture with the community at large. A lot of students, of course, will come home, they'll talk about their day, and they'll kind of give their families a glimpse into the school. But, a lot of parents, a lot of family members aren't experiencing the school culture firsthand. And so you can really use Facebook. You can share photos and videos to offer them that glimpse into the daily life of the school. You can certainly use it to share special events. You can share information from field trips or school gatherings. If you have festivals or celebrations around the school, that can be a great kind of information to share with families. You can also share something that families will have heard a lot of information about but haven't experienced. So something like maybe you have small reading groups or something like that. You can use Facebook as a way to invite parents into those aspects of the school that they may not have been able to see. So maybe you're sharing photos from a reading group or videos from a reading group, and you can, I'm sure they've heard their students talking about the kinds of things that they do in their reading group. You can actually let them see it firsthand. But you can also certainly interview students about their experiences with the school, and this can be almost a testimonial of sorts. Let students express in their own words their, favorite memory from this year, or their favorite aspect of the school, or what they most look forward to in the morning. Or, even you could have some of the older kids giving kind of welcome messages to some of the younger kids, and that could be something where the families of those younger students sit down at the computer and share those videos with their children. And you can invite kind of a discussion amongst the family and help some of those younger kids, come into the school in a way that feels more organic with them. Facebook is also a great opportunity to celebrate student achievement. And what I'm really talking about here is both academic and social achievement. So, of course, things like sharing high quality work, that can be great. You can share photos, maybe it's videos of a science project or something like that, science fair happening around the school. That could be a great opportunity to leverage both photos and videos. But outside of academic achievement, we can also celebrate students just doing the right thing around the school. So I know a lot of schools in the States will have, citizenship awards, where they'll basically reward students for showing, maybe it's like bravery or courage or, overcoming something they were having difficulty with. Well, you can use Facebook to celebrate students for doing those kinds of things. You can interview them or put up photos and talk about how the student overcame some kind of adversity. And it can be a really nice way to celebrate the student. And, there's also a really high likelihood if you are celebrating a particular student, that student's family is going to get pretty excited about that information. They're going to start sharing it with their community as well. And it's a great way to bring some of the, friends of friends into awareness about your school and all the amazing things that you're doing. And one other opportunity is definitely to share test scores. A lot of schools will, tout their results on testing and show kind of the academic prowess of its students. Facebook is a great opportunity to do that. It can be an opportunity to share how well the school is doing academically. And, a lot of parents will certainly get excited about hearing that kind of information. It's also an excellent opportunity to promote involvement and engagement, both online, but also taking it offline and taking it, to an in-person experience with parents. So you can certainly promote upcoming events. You can collect RSVPs, you can share information. You can also get feedback from people about what they would like to see in an event. You can remind them that the event's coming up. You can really use it to drive more attendance at your in-person events. It's also an excellent opportunity to actually have meaningful discussions with your community. A lot of times it can be difficult to get a lot of feedback from the community, and a lot of, you'll hear from a vocal minority of parents, both good and bad, that are very passionate. But a lot of times it's hard to get feedback from kind of some of those parents maybe that are more in the middle. Facebook is an excellent opportunity because there's a good chance they're already on Facebook. It doesn't take a tremendous amount of effort for them to give you their feedback. So you can ask questions and really invite a dialogue. Facebook is certainly not just a one-way communication tool where you're blasting information out. If it's used correctly, it really should be kind of this two-way street where you're getting feedback from the community and you're responding. And that really is kind of the key, as far as I see it, to engaging the community, is making sure that you are actually listening to them and also responding to them. If I'm a parent, I'm going to be much more likely to engage with my child's school if I feel like they're listening to me, if I feel like my voice is heard. And so it's really important when you're asking for feedback from the community that you're also letting them know you hear them, that you're responding to them, and that you're also implementing their feedback in the school. If they see that you are actually doing that, there's much more of a chance that they'll get involved both on Facebook and also in the school itself. And lastly, I just want to quickly talk about the importance of measurement. Both as a teacher and then also in my current role now, just measurement is something that I feel like is fundamentally necessary to know whether or not we're actually achieving outcomes. And with Facebook, it's no exception. And the key first step when it comes to effective measurement on Facebook and any social media really is to first identify the point of being on Facebook. It's great to get a lot of likes. It's great to get a lot of engagement with your posts, but ultimately those things don't matter as much in and of themselves. You need to figure out how it's actually going to benefit your school. A few examples would be maybe you're trying to engage your community in conversation. You're trying to solicit feedback. Maybe you're trying to drive more attendance to school events, or maybe you're trying to drive traffic to a specific portion of your website. Whatever it is, identifying those key metrics early on will be really important to measurement. And then once you've figured those things out, then the question becomes, well, how do you measure them? And we generally push people to kind of a combination of both Facebook Insights, which is Facebook's analytics tool, their native tool, and a website analytics tool like Google Analytics. And I can just quickly talk about each of those. So with Facebook Insights, Facebook just launched a new version of their Insights tool, and it provides you a pretty robust set of analytics information. So you can see, first of all, just kind of general demographic information for people that have liked your page. You can see things like age, gender, the location. So, if you're looking at something like age, you can see whether you're getting a lot of likes from students if you skew younger, or you can, if you have a lot of parents, maybe even grandparents, you can see all of that just by looking at the demographic information in Facebook Insights. And you can also use the location information to see if you're getting a lot of likes from right around your area, you can share hyper-local information because that's going to be relevant to your audience, whereas maybe you're doing some really interesting things on your Facebook page, you're getting a lot of likes from people overseas, well, that's great to know too, because that audience isn't necessarily going to be as interested in kind of the local happenings, but it would definitely, you could share information that would be more relevant to them, that's maybe more broadly applicable to education and what you're doing in the school. You can also see things like content consumption, so that just the types of content that tends to get a better response that can help you, inform your decisions as to the kinds of content you should be sharing. You can see the time of day people are consuming your content, so then well, I could post this in the morning, but most of my engagement happens in the afternoon. Maybe I'll wait till the afternoon to actually post that information up. And you can also see growth over time. So you can see the effectiveness of some of your efforts. Maybe it's the beginning of the school year and you launch a campaign to try and drive people to your Facebook page. Well, you can see maybe right after you launch that campaign, you had a lot of growth on the people that are on your page and have actually liked your page. Well, then your efforts are working. So that can be really helpful too, to see growth over time. And then with website analytics, what we're really looking for there is what kind of experience are visitors that come from Facebook having on your website? So, how many pages are they looking at? Are they taking beneficial actions that you have on your website? For instance, maybe your school website has the ability to sign up for your newsletter or something like that. Well, you can see if people from Facebook are actually doing that. And if they are, great, that would be really beneficial. And if not, well, maybe you can look at what you could do to improve the experience that they're having. And you can also see which pages on your website folks from Facebook are landing on. And, which of those pages are leading the most people to look at other pages? Are there any pages that people are landing on, but they're just bouncing right off the website without looking at other pages? You can see kind of how your content is performing and really optimize your site to engage with folks that are coming from Facebook specifically, and you can really kind of make sure that that is a pretty seamless transition. So that's kind of the broad overview of kind of content you can share on Facebook and also measurements. And I'll turn it back over to Mark, and I'm happy to answer questions as they come up.
Great, that was fantastic. Thanks, David. And how about, while I get Shannon to pop up one of our poll slides, which is, does your school use Facebook? Yes or no? Thanks, Shannon. Could we just quickly give David a round of virtual applause by clicking on your emoticon button and finding your little applause tool? And you can just give him a quick virtual round of applause, because that was sensational. Now, there's a quick poll, everybody. If you wouldn't mind taking a couple of seconds just to make your choice. I went through that earlier on. It's next to the hands up button, top left corner, near where that emoticon tool is. So you can choose a yes or a no. This is about your school, whether your school has a Facebook imprint. I've made a few comments. We've got some questions to ask David, but we'll save that for after we've heard from Kay. But a little bit of commentary for you, David, and wow, there was a lot in there. I liked your theme, your question about how can Facebook be used to drive or to head towards an educational purpose. I liked that you talked about people needing to be aware and there needing to be clarity. You referred to people needing to be on the same page in relation to what we contribute and how we contribute. I liked the fact that you had a theme that Facebook is there to share your school culture, because if you aren't sharing the positive stories of your school, then somebody else might be. So having a positive digital footprint can actually counteract, if you like, any negative material that certainly may exist in the space. You talked about Facebook being used where students could interview students, so we loved that idea. Students could provide welcome messages or testimonials about the school, test scores, feedback, not just being transmission tool, but one that actually connects and seeks contribution from the community. I certainly got the theme that it's important for us in terms of leaders of schools and leaders of teaching to go where the community already is. And if the community is out there on Facebook, then reach out to them from that medium. And we've got lots of questions too which are coming up. One of them is about the difference between pages and groups and whether the tools like Insight that you refer to are applicable to groups or pages. Before we move on, David, to Kay, could you just pick up on that, if you're okay with that, the difference between pages versus groups in relation to certainly the tools that you talked about?
Sure. Yeah, I definitely can. So this is something that has been kind of changing a little bit lately, actually, because Facebook has removed some of the functionality from pages but left it in groups. So this is kind of in flux, and I will say, just in my own experience, I am much more familiar with pages than with groups. But in terms of insights, my understanding is that is something that is aimed at Facebook pages. So that's really an analytics tool that you're looking to measure kind of the public-facing Facebook page that you have, whereas groups allow kind of a greater deal of flexibility. So some groups are, and actually the way that I've generally heard of schools using groups is more of kind of a closed environment where people within the school can share information with one another. It's almost like an intranet of sorts where they're having conversations within the school, but the idea isn't really to connect with the external community, because generally pages are going to be better for something like that. If you're talking about connecting with the community at large, groups are going to be a little more of a closed environment.
Great, thanks for that, David. And Henry, terrific question. It's one that I've written down to ask both David and also Kay and the rest of the people in our Facebook session today afterwards, which is, you know, do schools have a dedicated social media curator or publisher, which is a great question. So keep those questions coming, and there'll certainly be time at the end for people to put up their virtual hands and ask those questions themselves, or I'll do some collating and play Q&A with David and Kay. Now, Kay's getting herself ready. We've run a quick poll. Does your school people that are in this group use Facebook? And I can see that 8 of you do and 10 of you don't. So I'm hoping that when we have our conversation that some of those 8 will have an opportunity to contribute some of the solutions as well. We're going to ask another quick question of you. For those 8 people whose schools use Facebook, what I'd like you to do is to use one of the tools down the side. It could be the little finger point tool or the draw tool. There's a whole range of messy tools that you could use to tick, or you could drop there's a little clip art button at the bottom of the toolbar. It's got a little picture of a landscape painting on it. You could click on that, and you've also got some tools there that you could use. You just need to use the small ones. You can see that some clever person, I don't know where that page came from, some clever person has found the clip art there already. Bizarre slide there. Okay, Shannon, we're getting ready to, if you could flick back to the Bambi 7 slide, that would be great. Everybody with us today, we've got, as I mentioned at the introduction, Kay Clifford, who works at Blair Athol North, got it right, Birth to 7 school. Kay will introduce herself, a little bit about the context of the school, the size, location, the fact that it's a blended school. Kay, we'd be interested to hear about, first of all, your drivers for engaging in Facebook. I know you've got goats at the school, I think, but we're interested to hear about your drivers, the response from the community, and any bits of wisdom that you might share to schools planning on engaging in using Facebook as a reach vehicle for their community. Kay, over to you.
Thanks, Mark, for that. Just to give a little bit of context for our school, Blair Athol North Birth to 7 school was one of the new schools, and it was amalgamated from Jeps Cross Primary, Kilburn Primary and Blair Athol Preschool, and it began operation in 2011. Our community, we're in a low socioeconomic area, and our community, we're going to be coming up against perhaps education done in a vastly different way from what they have been used to. So we looked at our school environments, our learning environments in schools, and the availability of trying to get opportunities for children to engage in their learning and become lifelong learners. That's our vision and goal. In 2012, last year, we had looked at our parent community and thought many of them have mobile phones or smartphones, and the plans at that time included Facebook as a free function there. And to sort of make a better connection with our community and inform them and for them to become part of their child's education, we thought of setting up a school Facebook. So at the end of beginning of term 2 last year, we had a whole school Digital Citizens Week focus, and this was the launching of our Facebook page after all of the studios, we call them classroom studios, after all the studios have been doing some work on what digital citizenship means for every year level. Let me see.
Are you okay there, Kay? You've just gone quiet for a moment. A thoughtful pause, perhaps?
Sorry, Mark. It happened to be a talk button, I think, that somehow went off. I was just talking about the launch of Digital Citizenship Week. In that week, we invited the parents and children to come in and invited the police, the youth police connections with them. They came in as well to talk about being good citizens online. And for this reason, we're trying to get a better communication, parents, community, the special forces that actually support us, all of those things. So they came in. It was really interesting to see the interactions there. At Bambi 7, we've been trying to do things differently to get real engagement. Sorry, I'm just getting a message up here at the moment. I'll just get rid of that. Just bear with me, sorry.
No worries, Kay. I think that might be the file that's been shared with people, the digital citizenship file.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I just sent that through. So this was the slideshow that we put up, and trying to get children to be using Facebook ethically, YouTube ethically, and being able to work together. We also included in that Digital Citizenship Week a new email address for children called Stop Bully. So that they had an avenue, an online avenue, they could go and actually express any problems that they had come up with. And again, the police were supporting that, and we're trying to work with them as a partnership as well. The other thing that Facebook's provided us, the links with our community, but also with sharing the type of learning that is going on in our studios. And in those studios, they might look quite different to a general classroom. We've had a Reggio Emilia inspired influences, and then secondly, we've also looked at sorry, there was an unusual phone going off. My apologies. We've also looked at learning spaces and special environments, etc. And in these, we're trying to get children to feel comfortable and find their own zone for learning. And some of those zones, we had 4 in particular that we're looking at. So a cave, when a child wants to actually go and explore for themselves and make understanding of their learning, they might go to a cave area, a nice secluded area where they can actually think. There might be a watering hole where a group work can occur, or there might be a campfire. And this campfire is where there can be some expert learning. And also we look at something called the mountaintop, and that can be digital or virtual or physical, where children can share their learning with others. So the environments look different, and to share this quite different look and feel with parents, we found Facebook to be a really good opportunity to do this. And Mark's got up on screen, or Shannon, the area for where some of the studios in the early years in purple have created their own Facebook page, and we're showing parents what's actually been happening with their children at school, and the comments then are coming back from the parents about their kids learning, and so they're starting to become involved and seeing really what it's like for their children at school. So for us, Facebook, I guess, has become another avenue for us to really try and connect and break down sometimes those barriers that occur between home and school. So it's just another way of us getting a little bit closer, I think, and working together as a team for all children's learning and education. When I was listening to David, I was just going, yes, tick, tick, tick. All of those things that you were saying, David, sounded very, very similar to what we were thinking of in our philosophy, and where it was just ringing quite true with me. So thanks. I won't repeat a lot of that, but I certainly endorse all of your thoughts on that. One thing I didn't mention was at the Digital Citizenship Week, we also had signed agreements, obviously, with all of our learners and children at school about being able to be using Facebook, have photos, etc., all of those permissions, all of those things went out, and also what it means for a digital footprint. And one of the slides that we sent through, or that file we sent through, was about that digital citizenship and the digital footprint that is online at this stage. And the other focus, I guess, is making sure we're working together to keep our children safe in a digital environment, and that goes with the Stop Bully email as well. Planning. Some of the things that we're doing to keep Facebook current, to keep it moving and not to get stale, and if people are looking on their daily, people are wanting to see things change, just as you would in normal Facebook. So for us at school, to ensure that this was happening, we did actually set up a little roster system in our admin group, and we're posting on there, kind of trying to regularly, so it's keeping current, etc. So that was just one little manoeuvre that we were doing. So we can always post at other times, but just so that we don't forget about it in our busy lives. So a little strategy that might be of use to others. Over the course of the last year or so, with Facebook happening, there has been some issues with students' inappropriate use of Facebook, but we've actually used our links with the police and also in our counselling system within the school to really work through these issues with students, so they do have a very strong and good understanding, clear understanding of what it means to be online and the responsibilities that you take. So by having those connections with the police, with our community, with learning advisors, and within the school, I think we're trying to build a really strong digital citizenship with our students. Perhaps I might just sort of stop there, if that's okay, Mark, and if you've got some questions that I might be able to respond to.
No worries. That sounds great. And could we just give Kay a quick virtual round of applause too? That was, above and beyond. And for people's information, Kay generously offered to help us out at very last minute notice. In fact, was online, I think, doing a trial with Shannon at 11 o'clock last night. And Kay, we would have missed something out significant if we hadn't reached out to you and asked you to contribute, because I was just taking notes like crazy then. And there's, it's great when you get two people like yourself and David both touching on the same kind of bigger themes. Here's the things that I jotted down to myself. There seemed to be this real connection between your broader school culture and your use of Facebook. So Facebook hasn't been the added on tool, but if you like, it's an expression of what you're trying to do within the school and community around connected learning, around collaborative learning, around parent active engagement. And if you like, Facebook is the right tool to actually allow you to deliver on some of those. And when a new tool presents itself, you'll probably move to that, to wherever the crowd is. But it's an expression of your current culture that you're building at Danby 7 was the message that I got. I like the way that you are strategically, if you like, leveraging the advantages from Facebook, but you're not ignoring the potential pitfalls. So your work around digital citizenship, and that you've shared with us as well, kind of said to me that maybe part of, and David touched on this too, maybe it's all in the planning and preparation that actually minimises the harm that could potentially happen. So that was super. Thank you, Kay. Okay, what I'm going to do now, people, is just run through a couple of questions. We've got some input from Matinga, which I'm just going to comment on. She's emailed it through. We talked to her the other day in Madrid, and now she's back in the States. Little wonder she had some connection problems. She said the biggest value for her for using Facebook with students was just that immediacy of communication, of being able to get a message out straight away with the students and with the parents. She also saw it as a powerful, authentic way where she could model respectful adult engagement in a social media situation. So if you like, a real world example of digital citizenship. She finds it's useful as a way for follow-up conversations. If the school or parent body have had guest speakers in, they can engage with those speakers before, during and after a topic or a conversation, which is useful. And also she's made the comment that it's a powerful way for educators to remain up to date in relation to social media. So there could be an argument, if you like, that by schools engaging in the use of Facebook to help them do their business, they inadvertently upskill their staff and place them in the same social media space that the students are, which will, you would imagine, give the teachers a better understanding about the challenges and the opportunities of social spaces for learning. I think that's what they're saying. Okay, so what I've got are a couple of questions to ask either David or Kay. And I'll probably go to both of them or one at a time or something clever like that. So Shannon, would you mind just popping up another eye candy slide? That would be good. So the first question, really, we've touched on a little bit of it. It's about bad behaviour, and it comes up all the time. It's essentially a question around, do you moderate comments? When something bad is said, do you respond to it or ignore it? So let's say, Kay, that you've done all of this setting up, and David, you've done this setting up. We've been clear how we're going to contribute. We've been clear how we're going to engage with one another, and you've got some nasties have come onto your school's Facebook from an aggrieved parent. So David, first of all, just your thoughts around this whole moderation, bad behaviour, take action or not. David?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think this is certainly one of the things that keeps a lot of schools, or at least makes a lot of schools apprehensive about getting on to Facebook in the first place. It's kind of these worst case scenarios. And I think, this is something that certainly can happen, so I don't want to say that it certainly can't, but I do think that a lot of times we tend to kind of overstate how frequently these kinds of things will happen. So I do just want to point that out. That being said, you can, in your settings, if you go into your page's settings, you can turn on a profanity filter. So if there's any profanity written, that'll automatically get filtered out. You can also turn on kind of different levels of moderation. And, this is really something that is up to you ultimately. But I tend to push people as much as possible to leave those things unmoderated and then go in and remove something if it has to be removed. Just because, if you are going to have this conversation, you want that to be as unmoderated as possible. And you can always make it more restrictive if you need to, but it would be a shame to miss out on a lot of voices that could potentially be in the conversation because you've been kind of overly restricted from the beginning.
Good advice.
Kay, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well.
Kay, your thoughts on that question? You would have probably experienced this in setting up and embarking upon Facebook, with a new blended school community. Comments on that?
Yes, I think to go back, again, we don't have friends obviously on our school Facebook. It's a community sort of set up site. And then secondly, when we have had some undesirable perhaps comments or postings, etc., we have got the settings moderated. So I think we've only deleted perhaps or stopped one or two over the time. So it's been fairly minimal. What people tended to do though was to go to their own Facebook pages and perhaps the not so nice comments and behaviours, etc., are on their own pages and not so much on our school. So we try and turn things around for a positive spin each time. And the other thing we might do is on student identity and the that digital safety, if there's identities that are screaming out that, no, you need to sort of be a little bit more careful about yourself, then we've done something with those people or children about how they're presenting themselves.
Great. Thanks, Kay, for that. Thanks for the weighing in on that one, because as David said, it can be quite a barrier for people in schools, who may be risk averse to engage in using Facebook, and also to use it more than just an electronic version of a newsletter as an electronic transmission tool. I guess we need to keep in mind social media has that socializing element, but that doesn't mean that schools don't engage in actions to recognise and to mitigate potential risks, and the risks are damage to reputation, individuals or schools. So let's be clear, that's the risk. Let's be then clear about the strategies we're going to undertake to minimise the likelihood of that occurring, but you certainly cannot remove it. Good question from Henry, which we won't go into an answer from our guest speakers, keeping in mind the time, but it certainly is a very real one where those hostile commentaries, those flame wars spill out beyond the school's Facebook page and they move into social media land. And I've certainly across the states and territories have heard many examples where staff have actually undertaken legal action against parents in relation to slanderous comments. In fact, a couple of those were being commented in the Advertiser in the last couple of weeks in South Australia, where a principal had been successful in a civil action against 3 parents who had slandered her on social media sites, not the school's page, but other pages. The power of taking a screenshot. Every time we go online, our behaviours are being tracked. There's a powerful message there. Now, I'm aware of the time, friends, so I don't want us to run over time because everybody's got crazy things on. So on this slide, and you probably know this already because you're a very clever bunch, that you can go to File and you can go to Save, and you can save a whiteboard. You can also go to File and you can choose Print, and from there you can choose to print the whiteboard. In viewing the recording, this slide is here forever. What I've done is curated my best resources around schools' use of Facebook, certainly not the only resources, but the ones that I've used as a principal and as a teacher, and I've gone through them and I've found that it's been useful in adding to my knowledge about this topic in social media. So I'm sharing those freely with you and hope that you find some of those useful. I'm just going through my little sticky label pad here, and I'm just checking off questions, and then we can have a quick hands up, and then it will be chance for a quick wrap up. David, in one sentence, what is the most valuable thing you've learned about the use of Facebook for schools?
So I think that Facebook has the power to truly be a two-way communication tool as long as schools are willing to leverage it in that way.
Good. Great answer. And Kay, what's the one thing that you've learned that you'd share with somebody else about to embark upon this?
For us, I think it's becoming closer community partnerships and for the sole goal of improving all of our kids' learning and attitudes to learning.
Terrific, thanks for that. Now, I think we've touched on the group pages, the groups versus pages, and the resources I shared pick up some of those. We've talked about bad behaviour. We're in the business of it at times, it seems. Moderation. We've talked about how do you keep things current and fresh. And Kay shared a great strategy of having a roster of, if you like, social media contributors or editors, and I'm sure there's other solutions too. But I like that, Kay. You're setting up an e-routine, and in creating an e-routine in your school, you're actually valuing that mechanism as a really important way of telling the story of our school at this time and place. Powerful business, good stuff. And I think we've covered a lot of the stuff to do with safety, images and privacy, particularly when David said right at the start, hey, we've got to comply with the policies that affect us. So the policies that affect your state and sector and system need to be adhered to, because when you go out in Facebook land as a school, you're representing the Minister of Education. So we need to comply within those, and we get that. Before we wrap up, friends, we've got about 30 or 40 seconds. If anybody's got a burning question of the fabulous David or the wonderful Kay, and you want to practice putting up your virtual hand, this is your moment of fame. This is just like the X Factor, and this is your audition. So if you have a question or you just want to thank them personally for being fabulous and sharing, put up your hand and say so now. They're clearly all overwhelmed, Kay and David. David, first, just back to you. I just want to and ask people to provide any final commentary in the text chat box as we wrap this up. David, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it in the land down under here, and we wish you luck with WiredImpact.com and its work building websites for not-for-profit organisations, just like Principles Australia Institute is a not-for-profit organisation. We thank you for sharing your expertise and your Twitter handle, and I know you're going to get a lot of extra followers as a result of this. So, David, thank you, and maybe you'd like to just say a farewell to our Australian listeners.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mark and Shannon, for the invitation to stop by and talk, and thanks to everyone who's already been sending some thoughts over on Twitter. So far, some great information over there, some great conversation happening, and I look forward to continuing that in the coming days.
Great, that's fantastic, and a beautiful example of you know, the social in learning, which is terrific. And Kay, you picked up on that beautifully, I think, in your input session. And we can't send David anything other than some virtual flowers, but Shannon and I are going to get our heads together around a way to appropriately thank you, because your input was spectacular. And we hope the goats are going well at Banby 7. So, Kay, would you like just to say a farewell to our audience?
Yes, thanks. It was a good experience to put this in perspective too and share our journey, because it brought in a lot of threads that we, didn't kind of expect. So thanks for having me. It was a pleasure to be here, and I learned so much, and it was certainly a great experience for us.
Excellent. Thank you, Kay. The pleasure was all ours. Thank you, participants who have joined in today and have contributed in the text chat box and helped to build the conversation. We really appreciate that. Thank you to Shannon for managing so aptly in the control room with a few of our challenges right at the start, which is just like being in a school, really. There's multiple variables that we juggle every moment of every day. So it's been fun and interesting for us. We're glad that you had a great time. Shannon, if you're there, I don't know whether a survey is going to be opening up when people close out. So when you close out of this session, there may or may not be a survey. Oh, there is. It's less than 10 questions, and it will provide us with valuable feedback to make sure that Principal Australia Institute's PowerNet events continue to deliver intriguing and interesting professional learning. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm Mark Sparvel. We'll see you next time.